Remember to subscribe and hit the notification button to keep up to date with our latest videos.
Looking for a place to stay for this night, even though my room is empty. My baby got me out the door tonight, our story never ending. He says that I'm the worst and it's better off alone. Still in front of me is standing. I turn to get along and say that something's wrong, but he's understanding. I don't know why I was there. I can't see clear, but right there. Gotta find a way out of here.
All right, you guys, welcome back to the show. My name is Marcus, and you're watching Roads Untraveled. The best way to start any car review is indeed with your foot fully down to the floor. This is the 2019 Infiniti Q60S I-Line Red Sport 400 all-wheel drive. It's a great looking car, first off, and we're gonna take it for a quick drive today, go through the twisties, and kind of see how it stacks up as a luxury coupe, as well as out here in the more kind of sportier driving conditions. So let's go for a drive. So what we're gonna do first off is take the car out of standard mode, because that sounds very boring, and we're going to put it in Sport Plus, and then I shifted it over to manual mode so I can shift with the paddles. It also has snow mode, eco mode, and then a personal mode in which you can basically adjust each setting individually. As far as suspension goes, if you want it stiff, you want it kind of manageable, more luxury setting. And then you have your throttle mapping for the gas pedal, which changes slightly too. The steering changes, and you can adjust all of those individually. I do have a good personal setting I do like. Basically everything in Sport Plus except for the suspension. And don't get me wrong, in Sport Plus, the suspension is not too stiff. It's actually still very, very comfortable, albeit in the corners, you feel the road a little bit more. There's less body roll, and it becomes a little bit more agile through the corners. But I like to fully embrace what the Q60 does really well, which is it just rides beautifully on the road. It truly is a luxury coupe. And unlike the M340i we drove recently, great car, slightly different, more kind of catered towards the sports side of things. That was a little bit stiffer, right? And I definitely always kept that in the softest suspension setting. But this, you know, you can ride either way. Sport Plus is actually still very comfortable. Okay, so what you need to know, this Q60S I-Line is fitted under that hood with a 3-liter twin turbocharged V6, okay? So pretty standard for Nissan Infiniti for the last, I don't know, 10 plus years. It's a really good engine. It's got 400 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque. So yeah, the car's fast. The car's very fast, despite this weighing creeping up on 4,000 pounds. She's a heavy girl. It feels really good. It's got torque everywhere in the power band. This is basically a mini version of the GTR engine. Now, 400 horsepower is of course a lot less than the roughly 600 horsepower that the Nissan GTR comes with from the factory. But that being said, this thing is still a monster in this car, and I'm really glad Infiniti decided to give us this 400 Sport version instead of a 300 horsepower version, basically a detuned version that you can get for a little bit cheaper. So the price as tested for this Q60 is $68,500 Canadian, so a lot less USD if you were to convert it over for you American folks. And the Q60 itself starts at $53,000 Canadian, which is about $40,000 US. So basically, if you don't want to spend $68,000 on a Q60 400 I-Line and you just want the engine and that monstrous V6 under the hood, then you can have that starting at $53,000. What you don't get if you go with the base of the i-Line 400, you don't get a lot of the safety features. So it won't have lane departure, it won't have, you know, all the backup safety features and whatnot, but I'm kind of glad this one does. You know, it has, excuse me while I melt my face off with 400 horsepower. You know, it does have radar cruise control. It's got a bunch of luxury features in here, but from the outside, this car looks really good. This is, you know, all the middle-aged women in our neighborhood have been staring at this vehicle. It definitely presents as a kind of higher class luxury vehicle. And if you're kind of not in tune, maybe you're not so much into cars, you're not in tune with European manufacturers, Japanese, American manufacturers, this could stand out as being like one of the executive European manufacturer luxury coupes. Because let's be honest here, there is definitely a difference, and I'm about to get into some things here. There is a difference between a 70,000 German luxury coupe and a 70,000 Japanese luxury coupe, which we have found. So basically last week, I drove the brand new 2020 M340i for a week, and that was priced at $72,000. So about $4,000 more than this. And now, granted, they are different vehicles. This is a two-door, that's a four-door, and there's a few other things that kind of set them apart. But it was kind of a mistake, and it's kind of terrible that we had to get into this car after the M340i, because I'll tell you something, hate to break it to you, but I'd much rather spend, this is the hard truth, I'd much rather spend the extra $4,000 for the M340i than this Infiniti. I think this Infiniti is a little bit overpriced for what you get. And the main reason being, yes, the interior is really nice. All the materials, top quality, top-notch stuff. It feels like a luxury coupe. The seats are very comfortable. The leather's nice, the materials are nice, the steering wheel is very good in the hands, gives you some confidence behind the wheel, that sort of thing. But then you come to the center console here, and it just feels a little bit dated. I mean, it feels a little behind, especially getting out of that BMW that was only $4,000 more, just as fast, if not faster in a straight line. And like this, it's got a double screen layout, which right off the bat, I just absolutely cannot stand. You've got your nav up here, but then if you want to plug in an address, you have to go to this screen and hit the destination here, and then previous destinations. And then you plug it in from here. This screen is actually pretty responsive. This one, not so much, and it looks like it's from 2008, 2007, you know, it's just not, it kind of flips around. The nav screen does not smoothly move around. It kind of like, it's just, you know, it does not feel like a $70,000 center console here. It just does not feel that premium. The gauge cluster too, I mean, the gauge cluster is basically the exact same as you get in like a $40,000 Nissan or Infiniti. It's not anything special. The screen in between the tach and the speedo is a little bit pixelated. It doesn't have a crazy amount of info. It doesn't show the nav on there. This car does not have a heads-up display. It does not have ventilated seats. It does not have a wireless charging pad. And here in 2019, what we've come to realize here at Roads Untraveled is that if you're spending kind of above $50,000, $60,000 at the top end, you need a wireless charging pad, and, you know, ventilated seats, I don't know, kind of gimmicky, but useful in some scenarios. And like a heads-up display, those are kind of mandatory. And the fact that the Q60 is not, you're not able to fit those on this car is kind of disappointing. But frankly, every time I start going through the corners and feeling out the suspension and just driving this car and focusing on the road and the driving experience and the sound, it grows on me, and I start to really love this car. I start to really like this car. I don't think I love this car, but I really, really like this car, and it is quite the package. So that 3-liter V6 is paired with a 7-speed automatic transmission. And in manual mode, in Sport Plus, I will give it that it is it's more responsive than I thought it was going to be. Kind of kicks you in the back. When you do shift, 50% to 100% throttle when you're really giving her, like, that's pretty good. That's acceptable, right? The problem I have with this transmission is just feels more and more like a slush box. The more often you put it into standard mode and you just leave it in drive, it doesn't really do what you want all the time. In sport mode, it does not hang revs as long as it should, as long as a lot of other sports coupes do. And it just kind of, it feels a little lethargic. Now, I feel like if this was paired with a different transmission, even a dual clutch, or even like a well-tuned ZF 8-speed, I think it would be much better, and it would kind of bring the engine up a little bit, because as it stands, this transmission is kind of dragging the engine down with it. That's kind of the feeling I'm getting here. And the kickdown takes a little bit of time. When you go full throttle in automatic mode, it kind of, it takes a little bit longer than it should to shift down. And that really does suck, because I really do like this engine, and this engine has a lot of potential, and Nissan's had plenty of years to really kind of perfect these very torquey turbo engines, these V6s. Now, the one thing I do have to say about this engine is the sound and the noise. And this is a big problem with this car. Probably the biggest problem I have with this car. Like, this I can live with. This is fine, right? What I cannot live with is the terrible droning resonance that you get from this exhaust system, from this V6 at lower RPMs. Anywhere between 1500 and 2500 RPM if you're in normal mode and standard. As a luxury coupe that, when necessary, should be kind of isolating you from the environment, it doesn't do that as well as it should. It absolutely does not. There's just a very bassy kind of tone that you get, and this is the same problem that the R35 GTR has. And we've reviewed an R35 GTR. I've driven a couple of them before, and these V6s just inherently have a kind of cabin drone resonance when you're at the lower RPM. So that has to be said. It's not unbearable. Like right now at 2200 RPM, or on the highway 2500 RPM, 2600 RPM, it kind of goes away and you're fine. It's only some of the time, and if you leave it in drive and standard, it'll drop down, and it has a drone to it that is unnecessary. And I truly believe that Infiniti Nissan probably has spent a lot of time trying to eliminate that, and this is probably the best that they can do. But it has to be said. The exhaust itself does actually sound pretty good at the higher RPMs, especially when you're throwing out 400 horsepower at 6400 RPM, revs to about 7. Then it starts to sound good. But when you leave it in auto mode, which most people will most of the time, including myself, it drones. The exhaust drones way too much. It almost feels like a poorly tuned aftermarket exhaust on a V6 like this. So that is my biggest gripe with this car. Other than that, suspension tuning is on point. The steering changes just enough. It is, electronically controlled dynamic steering, speed variable as well. So it becomes a little less twitchy at higher speeds, gaining you some control there. So, it drives really nice, and Infiniti has thought of a few key features like that to actually make this car both good as a daily driver luxury car, and then you can actually still take it in the twisties and it'll feel somewhat planted and agile for a 4,000-pound car. Keep that in mind.
So to start off with, after getting out of the BMW M340i, with only a $4,000 difference between that and this, I have to say that the Q60 is lacking a little bit on the interior. More than anything else, what I think that's going on here is it's missing a lot of the luxury features and the luxury technology you would come to expect from a 2019 vehicle. Even simple features like the automatic trunk open and close option is not on this car. So it's something you would come to expect from a new vehicle, especially being a luxury vehicle. Even taking a look at the remote itself, it hasn't changed in almost 10 years. My dad bought a 2008 Nissan Murano, and it's nearly identical to this remote. That being said, there's nothing wrong with it. I think it looks sleek and modern. It's just that over a 10-year period of time, you'd think they would put a little bit more effort into the overall design of the interior as well as the remote. But anyways, let's hop on the inside and take a look.
If I say goodbye, then make me alive. If I say goodbye, then make me alive. Make me alive. My heart.
So as soon as you sit inside this car, the first thing you realize is just how well built everything is. Everything from the leather seats to the doors, everything is really hefty and solid. There's no rattles, there's no vibrations. It's a very well built interior. Looking at the leather seats here, I love the white leather that they've optioned this with. The headrests have this really cool, sleek design, and even the back seats have a really nice, sleek look to them. So the materials that they've used overall are great. I think they knocked it out of the park in that sense. But it's the technology that I think this is lacking. Because it's a 2019 vehicle, and when you sit down in it, it doesn't really feel like it. It almost feels like a luxury vehicle from 10 years ago. Taking a look at the center console, you have your drive mode buttons down here, which allows you to scroll through the options just like many other cars. Working your way up from there, you have this split screen infotainment system similar to the Acura that we filmed recently. Now this drives me insane because I absolutely cannot stand this design. It just looks so forced and it doesn't really follow the curves of the car, and it just looks super dated. Everything from going through the settings, going through the map, it feels like the overall software itself is way too outdated. So taking a look at the backup camera, you do get a lot of the angles that you come to expect from a new 2019 vehicle. You get your bird's eye view, you get your front and rear camera, as well as your side mirror cameras. However, what drives me insane is that the resolution is terrible. And again, it's 2019. I've spent $30 on a dash cam on Amazon that has better resolution than this screen. Taking a look at the steering wheel, I actually have to say I really like it. I think it looks really sleek, it fits well in the hand, and it's a really solid wheel. Even the paddle shifters behind the wheel have a nice solid click to them, and the buttons on the front are not overwhelming. It's easy to operate and you're never having to look to see what you need to press. Looking ahead at you, you have this gauge cluster that, again, I think needs some work as well. You do have the physical needles with the LCD screen in the middle. The LCD screen is not the highest resolution, and the needles themselves are pretty basic, and I think that they really need to put some more time into actually designing something that looks modern and sleek. So overall, like I said, the materials in this car, they look and feel great. However, the technology behind it needs some work. So if you're looking for a luxury vehicle that actually performs quite well, this does one of the two things. I mean, it does feel great, it's comfortable to drive, you do get a lot of the actual good quality leather inside, but if you're looking for a lot of that modern tech that you come to expect from 2019 vehicles, you're not gonna find it in this car. But anyways, let's hop back in the car with Marcus and finish up the review.
So all Q60s come standard with all-wheel drive, and this is where it gets kind of funky, and this is kind of what I like about this car. In all scenarios, most scenarios, the Q60, there is so much torque at 5,000 RPM. The Q60 will send 100% of the torque to the rear wheels. It is effectively, just like all the other previous kind of G35s and stuff, 370Z, it is a rear wheel drive car at heart, but then when the computer senses slip or the need to send torque to the front wheels, it will do so, up to 50%, and then you have yourself an actual all-wheel drive car. And even kind of on just semi kind of loose surfaces this past week, coming in and out of driveways, kind of lower speed corners, you can feel the front wheels when they do kind of grip up. And then like out of corner, powering out of that corner there, just for a split second, you can feel the back end, you know, it's very rear wheel drive feeling like, but then instantly, the front wheels very smoothly, kind of seamlessly, just rocket you out of a corner. and it's a very seamless all-wheel drive system. Tackle these last corners here, and that's basically our time with the Q60S. As you can tell, you guys, I'm having a lot of fun with this car. This is the most powerful new car that we have tested on the channel. It's a really great car. It's a really great car. It kind of grew on me at first. It just wasn't hitting all marks, and don't get me wrong, it does not hit every single mark I would like it to. But that being said, as a complete package, you know, Nissan Infiniti has come a long way in getting just that much closer to their European counterparts in terms of build quality. The doors are very long, very heavy, and that can be a good thing if you're talking about just the immediate feel of quality and build quality and sturdiness. It does convey that very well. Like I said, the interior materials are great. It's a fairly good layout here. Oh yeah, one more actual small gripe before we go. The seating position. This is actually probably even bigger than the exhaust problem. The seating position is way too high. You cannot lower the seat any further than this. I am not tall whatsoever. I'm a short guy. Look at this. Look at that. I've got that much room. If you're 6 feet tall or taller, you are not going to be able to fit in this car. Straight up. I got into the car when we first got this, and the previous driver had the seat jacked up quite a bit, and I'm like, oh, okay, and I started lowering the seat, and it didn't go any lower, and I thought there was maybe something underneath the seat blocking it from going any further, but this is your seating position. The seats are so big, you can't, like, I want to sit like this. I want to feel like I'm inside the car, but as it stands right now, you feel like you're sitting on top of the car and looking way over the hood. It's just it's probably the biggest letdown, that and the exhaust resonance and drone at certain RPMs. But you can have it all. This is the Q60i line. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. My name is Marcus. As always, you can subscribe if you have not already. Hit me up on Instagram at Roads Untraveled. You can kind of see some of the day-to-day behind-the-scenes stuff and a quick look at what we're shooting on a day-to-day basis. We hope to see you guys next time. It's been a lot of fun. Have a good one.